Welcome to the Energetics of Codependency, the podcast where we unravel the unseen forces that shape our relationships, our boundaries, and our sense of self. I'm Bridgid Burcano, an energy healer and transformational mentor, here to guide you through the deep embodied work of reclaiming your sovereignty. If you've ever felt trapped in cycles of overgiving, emotional caretaking, or guilt around setting boundaries, you're in the right place. Here, we explore the energetic roots of codependency and how to shift from entanglement to empowerment through somatic awareness, spiritual wisdom, and practical real-world strategies. You don't have to carry what isn't yours. Let's dive in. Hi, it's me again. The sun is rising on the ancestral lands of the Salish people. The eagles are rocking out. It is an eclipse in Virgo, and I am here to talk about emotions. Whew! What a special day. Emotions are something that I'd like to say I'm fluent in at this point. But also it's a lot easier for me to feel the emotions than to talk about the emotions. Like, you know how Frank Zappa says talking about music is like dancing about architecture. Like, switch the words music and emotion, and that's pretty much how I feel. It's like we can talk about it, but can you feel it? Some other qualifiers for me. My Mercury is in Pisces. Mercury rules communication, and Pisces is a very watery, imaginary, visual sign. So words are difficult. Like, if you and I were sitting in the same room, I could communicate with my energy more than with my words. So yeah, this is just kind of funny. I love emotions. Very tricky to verbalize and do it justice, but maybe I'll do it just fine. Let's see. If you know anything about human design, I also have an open emotional center, which means that I tend to feel other people's emotions just as much as I feel my own, and I actually amplify them. So my life has been a wild ride of trying to figure out what emotions are mine and what emotions are other people's, because I didn't even know that this was a thing until very recently, just a couple years ago, after I had learned from my energy work classes, like how to process emotions a lot better. Then I realized, oh, I'm processing other people's emotions, and now I can have better boundaries and say, oh, that's actually not mine. I don't need to process that. I'm just gonna put that aside, and I also don't need to amplify it. Yeah, these are skillful things. Okay, let's see. Emotions are incredibly powerful, and they are often linked with the element of water. So when you think of water, I don't know, you might think of a lake or a shower or, something fairly gentle and nourishing. Our bodies are made up of 70% water, as is the earth. Water is life. Water is essential. Water can take so many forms, and it can freeze in place for thousands of years. Emotions can freeze in place in your body for your whole lifetime, very similarly. And when I think of somebody who is frozen, starting to feel emotions, like I remember the first time I actually tapped into my grief, it felt like icicles or an ice pick, like stabbing straight into my chest. It was incredibly painful. So that's a fun one to open up with. But you start to think of like when the softer essence of emotion, like imagine a desert with rain that just starts to seep in, and then maybe the rain comes in more and it starts flooding, and then it actually starts carving canyons and, rivers rushing. I mean, the emotions are incredibly powerful, and they actually have the ability to shape the way your body is wired. And when you think about emotions also getting stored in the body, that's evidence that emotions transcend time and space. And another cool correlation is that scientists find that water holds memory. So you put all this together, and we release water through our eyeballs when we're feeling lots of emotion. So if you can put together that word salad, maybe you're discovering, maybe you're rolling with me about, how important emotions are. I hope so. It's funny to sit here and talk about emotions to a microphone, because really where I shine is pulling another person's emotions out of them. Let me hear about your emotions. That's what I want. That's what I prefer. But here I am sharing about my understanding of emotions and how important they are to me. I was just listening to that book by Napoleon Hill yesterday, Think and Grow Rich, and he stresses over and over that if you're trying to change the way you think, you can just repeat mantras over and over and it doesn't matter. Really, it's the emotional activity that will transform you. So when you're trying to get into this kind of work, like, you just really need to understand, like, you gotta surrender to emotion. And I understand how scary it is. I'm gonna read a little bit from my favorite writer of these last couple episodes, Miss Anodea Judith, PhD. I had a stack of books trying to figure out what I should say about emotion. And I looked through all of them, looked through their indexes, and I was like, yeah, that's good. But then I came up onto Wheels of Life by Anodea Judith. And I just really like how she says it. I think she and I speak the same emotional language. So here we go. Just a little section on emotions. In a pre-verbal child, like baby, emotional expression is the only language spoken or understood, the only means for a child to express his inner state. When emotions are appropriately mirrored by adult caretakers, a child forms a reasonable emotional identity. This emotional identity enables us to identify different emotional states later in life, both in ourselves and in others. Yeah. So think about different methods of raising children, and think about your own childhood. How free were you to express emotion, and how well was that received? Did you have the right to your own experience? Or were you, highly disciplined or maybe ignored? When that happens, children, babies don't get in touch with their own emotions, and they don't have the same kind of power over directing their own life or processing their own life. I love this rise in respectful parenting. I think that it's really going to produce an incredible generation where people know themselves more and have more agency. I was a parent coach. I still love talking about parenting, and I'll keep doing it because it's a huge part of my life. And so much of parent coaching is getting the parents to understand that who they are is so much more important than what they do. And ultimately, that's why I switched over to this. Like, let's just talk to the grown-ups about our own states of being, and that will naturally help the children. If they have insight into why a child is acting so chaotically, it's because they're, from 0 to 7, they're just sponges for their environment, and they are experiencing everything through their emotions and through their body and their sensory. They're just feeling it. And the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain that can, plan behavior, remember a list of tasks, or decipher codes, that's usually in a typical child does not even start to light up until 7 years old. And then it doesn't stop developing until deep into their 20s, like 26. So if we're expecting a child, 10 or under, to really like consider their behavior and consider other people's needs before their own, like it's really unrealistic. I'm just going to say it's just unrealistic. And not only is it unrealistic, but it's potentially incredibly damaging when they're not able to run the full circuit of their emotions. I know for me, when I think of being an emotional kid, I think of like not wanting to embarrass my parents in public. That's what I think of, like sitting still in church and like, just making sure that I look good and make everybody look good. And, not getting in trouble at school for having an emotional reaction. And also not having many outlets to just be chaotic. Music and dance are so expressive for me now. And, gosh, my parents, they're great, but very academic, very cerebral. So I was put in, ballet and choir and things like that, where, yes, it was honing my artistic talents, but not using them in the way that I believe I am meant to use them, which is not controlled. It is deep and honest. And therefore, like when I'm as an adult, when I attempt to make real art and real music, it's like I have this block, which, perhaps I can break through. And I still have more to do in that regard. But yeah, when I became a mother and my life turned from being a freelance musician, audio engineer, voice actor, jingle singer, voice teacher, production coordinator, stage manager, like that artists can understand, like you wear many hats. My life was that. And then I became a mom and I couldn't keep any of that up. And we moved out of the city and my life became about raw humanity. And it was just years of sloughing off layers and layers and layers. My friend was over the other day. She's an actress, or maybe a former actress. I don't know if she'll act again, but she said that she just got tired of putting on a face to do a job. And we met in music school. She was studying composition, and she said, yeah, it's like you write this song because you want to get the feeling out. And then you have to keep playing it over and over and over and like stewing in that feeling. And that becomes its own mask. So yeah, that's one reason I stopped performing. It's like, I just want to be who I am. I don't want to stay stuck in the same feeling night after night. But that's just me. I'm an Enneagram 7. I like to move. My husband's an Enneagram 4, and he just rolls in the feelings. And I'm going to go see him play some music tonight, and it's very highly emotional. Okay, let's see. What else? So now, as a child, if you are not able to fully express your emotions in the moment, then you make a decision in order to survive and push whatever that authenticity is into shadow. And the emotion does not disappear. It's just you get some weird ideas about it. Like, I will not survive if I let this thing out. And the shadow doesn't go away. It comes out in sneaky ways to get what it wants, because ultimately it just wants to be seen and expressed. So ways that this shadow can wreak havoc on your life is through addiction patterns of avoiding your feelings, or there's overeating, if you're like stuffing your feelings with food. It's trying to meet this need, but never quite meeting it. Because, as a baby, like you're crying to get fed most of the time. Like, you're crying because you're uncomfortable, and the best thing that could happen to you is somebody sticks a boob in your mouth. So that's, an oral wounding, when now as an adult, you're like drinking, smoking, eating to sort of appease that sensation. But that is feeding a shadow. So when I wanted to quit smoking, I started paying attention to, like, what am I really trying to get? Like, what do I really want out of this? What am I avoiding with smoking this cigarette? And I felt a pain in my chest. Like, it was grief. I would smoke cigarettes whenever I felt grief coming up. That's a tough one to feel. So then I started letting myself cry a little bit instead. And I don't even remember the last time I smoked a cigarette. It's been a long time. So there's a tip. Feel your feelings. But also, that's why people go to therapy, because feelings need to be presenced in community. I can't think of any feeling that is not relational in nature, meaning it has something to do with a relationship. Maybe it's a relationship to a person, or it could be a relationship to a place. I believe that places have spirits, so that is a relationship with a living entity. So, you think of a baby, going back to that, what we just read from Wheels of Life. If a caregiver can successfully mirror the emotions, meaning be attuned to them and hold space for them, then the child develops an emotional identity. But if this child is not being held in their emotions, is not getting mirrored, is being shunned for how they feel, then they shun themselves. So my role as a coach and as a healer is, there's a lot of emotional space holding, because my clients need me to reflect what they are experiencing and to hold it gently and to not be afraid of it. I need to be able to handle this, and then they will feel the safety of their own experience and they won't be alone in it. And it doesn't work to try to fix them, say, oh no, don't feel that way, don't feel that way. Like, I have to just sit in it and say, wow, so this is the truth. This is how it feels. And by the way, that is like classic codependent caretaking, is trying to stop people from feeling their feelings. Don't suffer. I'll take care of that for you. Don't face the consequence of your own actions. I got this. Like, that does not help people. That helps me, because I don't want to feel what I have going on. I don't want to feel the terror of, maybe this person's going to abandon me if I let them handle their own situation. If I say no. So there's the correlation there. I got to remember to tie this all back to codependency to stay on topic. Okay, I'm going to read a little bit more from this book, Wheels of Life. So emotions are inherently tied in with movement. We repress feelings by restricting movement. And conversely, movement can free the emotional holding that causes chronic tension. We can think of the basis of emotion as wanting to move away from that which is painful and towards that which is pleasurable. And I'm going to add in there connection. Ultimately, emotions connect people. Well, and they can, you know what? I take that back, because emotions will also cause separation if you see that the connection is painful. Interesting. Okay. Emotions are a complex instinctual reaction to pleasure and pain. They begin in the unconscious, and through movement are allowed to come into consciousness. To block an emotion, we restrict movement. Then the emotion may remain in the unconscious, meaning we are unaware of it, yet still wreak havoc on our lives. It is acting from the unconscious motivations that so often gets people in trouble. Yes. Like when you're not aware of why you're doing what you're doing, when you're not aware that things hurt or that you disagree with a situation and you're just going with the program, like what you think you're supposed to do, what you think is expected of you. That causes an emotional freeze, and it pushes your brightest self into shadow. I love Shaman Durek. He has a book called Spirit Hacking, and I love his framework for addressing shadow. And the way he talks about it is so simple. And what he says is like, actually, I'm going to go get it and read it. Oh my gosh, this is crazy. I just opened up to his, I just opened the page and here it is. Spirit hack, step into the unknown. He says, I always tell my clients they need to face the monster hiding under the bed, which means they need to step into the unknown. It is the only way for us to understand that there is no monster, just as it is the only way for us to claim our power and to change the world for the better. Stepping into the unknown means saying, I am willing to go to the places in myself that are uncomfortable and to embrace them with love. Stepping into the unknown means saying yes to that which frightens you. Stepping into the unknown means moving towards the things you want to run away from. Oh, Shaman Durek, I love you, you sweet, sweet, sweet man. What does that actually feel like, to step into the unknown? To confront emotions, buried emotions. I mean, it can be fairly simple. The more comfortable you feel, I try to make people feel really comfortable. That's why I have this podcast, so you can kind of get to know me and feel my vibe. And then when you want to come work with me, that trust is already built a little bit, because trust is really essential, I think, for being able to relax into emotion. So when I was thinking of how to explain emotion in the emotional process, you know what movies really do a good job of showing what it's like is Moana and Frozen 2. So I'm thinking of Moana, that scene where she has the glowing green heart of Nefertiti, right? I think that's what it is. It's this, you know what? I'm going to do a better job of explaining what this is. Okay, let's look to the Disney princesses for emotional guidance. But really, gosh, Moana is such a good movie. I love it. I love the music. I love that the characters actually look like Pacific Islanders or, Polynesians, and they're not super like skinny and whitewashed. That was a cool thing about it. But also the story of it. I asked ChatGPT to briefly explain the plot because I was stumbling all over it. But Moana follows the journey of a brave Polynesian girl, Moana, who is chosen by the ocean. Okay, ocean, water, the deep unknown. Some people are just chosen in their lineage to feel the feelings of their ancestry. I think I'm one of those people. I'll get into spirit stuff and ancestors later. So she's chosen by the ocean to restore the heart of Te Fiti, a goddess whose stolen heart has caused darkness to spread across her island. Darkness. They're not able to catch fish. There's less movement. Their food is rotting and going bad. It's not as vibrant and full of life. Okay. Defying her father's orders to stay home, Moana sets sail across the ocean to find the demigod Maui, who stole the heart. And Maui is full of ego. Like he's really concerned with how he looks, and he's just really full of himself, and he's like, there's a time and a place for masculinity, but he definitely verges on the toxic masculinity of being a little too boisterous, a little too full of action, a little too full of himself, a little too extracting, and he comes around too. So that is a great story also of the masculine trusting the feminine and working to protect the feminine, which Moana bravely and skillfully displays the powerful divine feminine. Okay, moving on. After facing various challenges, including battling monsters and overcoming self-doubt, Moana convinces Maui to help her return the heart. This is women coming and getting our men and reminding them why we're here. And I'm going to record an episode about this with my husband later. But that's a really beautiful partnership when kings and queens can work together. Okay. In the end, Moana realizes that Te Kā, the fiery villain, the scary volcano monster who is terrifying, if you've seen the movie, like, this is what it feels like. It's like, oh my gosh, it's this big, crazy monster that's going to eat me and destroy my village. Okay, so Te Kā, the fiery villain, is actually Te Fiti without her heart. Moana restores it, bringing life back to the world. She returns home as a true leader, embracing her destiny as a wayfinder. And that scene where she is holding the heart and slowly walking towards this big, scary monster. That is what it feels like to confront a shadow. I can feel my heart racing just thinking about it, and a little out of breath, but you just slowly walk towards the monster and give them the same sort of unconditional regard and compassion that babies need. And then the big scary monster takes the heart and becomes a life-giving island, so vibrant, full of joy and peace and prosperity, abundance. This is what we do when we learn to feel the emotions. I just love Moana. Okay, and I also mentioned Frozen 2, which was so cool, bringing all the elemental magic in there. So there's that scene where... Okay, I'm going to have to stop to remember what that little forest village was called. Okay, in Frozen 2... What is the... Northuldra, the indigenous people who lived in the enchanted forest. So Elsa's going to this village, Northuldra, and she pops into the magical mist. They're like sealed off from everybody, and they still work with elemental magic. That's just how they live their life. And something gets a little out of balance, and all the trees start lighting on fire. Like there's a war that breaks out with some soldiers, and everything's starting to go up in flames, and it's super chaotic. Anger, fire, and Elsa goes and finds the source of it because she's got magical powers too. And with her curiosity, she discovers that it's really just this little newt. And then she's able to hold it and balance it. So there's another example of confronting shadow and holding emotion. See the cute little innocent creature underneath the emotion, and you'll be able to handle it. But it gets really big. I mean, I've been in anger processing workshops where people are throwing chairs. Like, I remember the first time I did a real anger process, I was given a tennis racket and shown a very specific way to move that was kind of like a chopping motion, and it was meant to break apart lodged anger in my pelvis and solar plexus. And once I tapped into it, I actually ended up going for like a straight 45 minutes. And my hands at the end of it were raw, like completely blistered, but so worth it. And part of that experience, like there was a practitioner who was also available for eye contact, so I wouldn't just be alone and I could stay with it and be accepted in my anger. And ultimately that freed up a lot of life force for me. So what I'm hoping you take away from this episode is maybe a little glimpse of what it's like to have emotions if you're not familiar with that, and the power of emotions and the validity of emotions. And I'm not into this whole idea of overcoming emotions and being above emotions. There's a term called spiritual bypassing, where you transcend and you can meditate your way out of being a human. And that's just not ultimately useful. I mean, we're here, we're in physical bodies, we have these physical experiences, we're in a very troubled world, and a beautiful world, but a troubled world. And we're here to dig into it and wrestle with it. And I have a suspicion that transcending the emotions and the truth of what's happening here and the physical sensation, like it doesn't actually move evolution forward. It just bypasses it. It's like, you might as well just be a spirit floating in outer space. Like, why are you here? And also it does help something. I mean, spirituality is important. I love to spend a lot of time in spiritual la la land, but it just needs to be balanced with the reality of humanity and the human experience. That's what I'm about. That's what I'm trying to do here. So I hope you got something out of this. Please come write me an email, info@bridgidburkano.com, if you have any questions, and stay tuned for the next episode. Thank you for tuning in to the energetics of codependency. If today's episode spoke to you, I'd love for you to share it with someone who needs to hear this. And if you're feeling called to dive deeper, join me inside the 5 petals of the Well Woman's Rose, where we do the real embodied work of transforming these patterns at the root. You can find all the details at bridgidburkano.com or connect with me on Instagram, bridgid.burkano. I'd love to hear your biggest takeaway from today's episode, so send me a DM and let's continue the conversation. Before you go, be sure to follow the show and leave a quick review. Your support helps bring this work to more people who need it. Until next time, I'll leave you with my personal favorite motto after we do group work. Here it is. What's mine is mine. What's yours is yours. What's ours is ours. Take care. See you soon.